everybody! Ed Stevens here for another trip down Retro Lane. It's located in Retro Heaven. Here we are. I'm going to go through my Beatles vinyl collection, the American version. I'll take you down their magical mystery tour, groovy style. See you in a second. Hey friends, it's me, Ed Stevens, and I'm going to show you my Beatles record collection. Okay, and here we go. Beatles Rarities, that was 1980. These aren't in chronological order, so you're going to have to bear with me. Beatles 65, one of the very first few albums that I remember when I was a kid. My sisters were mad Beatle fans at the time. And this album was culled mostly from songs from the British Beatles for Sale album. And there's a few differences in the track listing, but I won't get into that, of course. I'm just getting into showing off these albums that I've collected. It's recent as 2003 because I get on eBay and start bidding on them, because I never had these when I was a kid. I used to see these albums because my sisters were big fans, and they didn't have them all either at the time. But Meet the Beatles, the first American release on Capitol. This is like actually their version of the second album in England, which was called With the Beatles. This is an old mono copy too, on the Capitol Rainbow label. One of the first Capitol records out there. It's the Help soundtrack, also on Capitol. I think this is mono also. And I remember seeing that movie when I was a kid. That was the second one they put out. Hard Day's Night was the first. That album's in here too. I'll get to it. I was like 4 years old when those movies come out, and when these records come out, it's unbelievable. It's how that stays with me. And I think that's the Help album again. Revolver, which came in 1966, 2 years later after Beatlemania hit. This is when they kind of getting tired of touring and started to live into the studio. This was the beginning of that era. Although they were still on the road, but their last concert was in August of 1966. And what was to come after this was, of course, Sgt. Pepper, which was totally, they lived in the studio and put a lot more time in it. And these are my favorite albums from that period, I think, Revolver. And I got a couple copies of the Love Songs album, which has no cover. Introducing the Beatles. Now this was from a record company before Capitol could get their hands on it, or were even interested in doing it. They wouldn't even promote them at first. So they would go around to all these little labels at the time, like I think George Martin and Ryan Epstein were in America trying to promote the Beatles on these small record labels like VJ there. There, introducing the Beatles on VJ Records with their own Rainbow label also. I also have another copy of this, but I bought it around 1980 around there, and the label was not, it was just jet black. So I assume that was just a counterfeit or something, I don't know. But I'd found them in the bargain bins, I could show that to you. Here's the Introducing the Beatles on VJ with just a black label, which is a mono album also, and so was this one. And I guess the stereophonic version of this on the original VJ is even more rare, according to people on eBay. People are on eBay are just trying to sell this like crazy left and right. They want astronomical prices for them too. The Beatles' second album. This album is compiled from songs from the With the Beatles, the British With the Beatles album, and they put She Loves You and Roll Over Beethoven on it. Well, Roll Over Beethoven, I believe, was on With the Beatles. Yes, it is. But She Loves You wasn't. That was a single that they had, you know, later was put on past masters when they released the CDs, and a bunch of other songs, of course, which contributed to the differences and the chaos of the packaging of the Beatles. This is an Apple version of it. And Rubber Soul, which also has 12 songs on it instead of 14 like the original British version. Apple one also. I might have a original Capitol in there. Something new. Songs basically culled from the Hard Day's Night project, and they repackaged it as something new. I think that was the very first album I remember seeing in my sister's room once Beatlemania hit. They were on the stage of the Ed Sullivan Show in this picture here. I believe that's where that was taken. It looks like it anyway. The Beatles 6, an album that has songs culled from the Help album. This is their version of it. The early Beatles, songs that were on the Introducing the Beatles album at first, and then Capitol got the rights to their music and put their own version out, the early Beatles. The Beatles, Yesterday and Today. These are songs that were originally on Revolver, most of them anyway, and this was also the controversial Butcher cover, actually the cover that covered the gory Butcher cover, that later is now a big collectible on eBay these days. But this is not one of them, of course, because it says Gold Record Award, and I wished it was one of those. Okay, here's my United Artists Beatles Hard Day's Night. That was the label that put out the Hard Day's Night music here in America, and Capitol took some of those songs and put them on something new. I think that's how it worked. These are similar albums, but there's a lot of movie filler music in this one. Stuff that you hear, like, well, the stuff that you hear playing while they're walking along and whatever, you know, Ringo's song and that kind of stuff. Ringo's theme, This Boy, instrumental, that kind of stuff. It's not on the Something New album. So there's a way to squeeze money from these guys left and right. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is an original mono version, which has now found its way on CD in the box set. Back in 2009. First time you could hear it clearer than what you would hear on his old vinyl record. The inner sleeve has all these weird colors, which were later dropped to save money, of course. And I don't have any of the original cutouts on this old album. They probably got discarded by the original owners. But this is the original mono Capitol rainbow label. Magical Mystery Tour. Soundtrack from the film that was a flop in England. It was a Boxing Day special that they put on their tellies at the time, and it was in black and white even. I don't remember it. In fact, I'd never seen it until maybe the 80s when they started showing, they finally found some copies that resurfaced, but these were in color, of course. But I always loved the music at Hello Goodbye, and of course I remember that I got the singles collection too, which would be a whole other video. Which, you know, the singles that I have are on this album, this compilation, which has a strange history in itself. I made a video of that recently about the EP versus this LP. You'll probably find it in my collection out here on YouTube. The all-white Beatles album. It's even hard to focus. There it is, The Beatles. I won't dig this open. Well, I kind of don't have to. There's the orange label. These are one of the later issues, maybe in the middle 70s. this was released. Okay, here's part of the White Album poster and the 4 8x10s that are in it. Ta-da! Stupid glare. There you go. I've yet to find one with a number on the, I think it's the lower right hand corner. They had a few, the first run had special numbers on the front covers, and I hear those are worth some money, or whoever wants to pay the high prices that they ask for, that is. That's on VJ, by the way. Abbey Road, which was the same in America as it was in England as far as track listing and amount of tracks. And it was the first album to be in stereo only. None of the other ones, I think, everything before that had a mono and stereo counterpart. That was another dilemma for, you know, stereo was getting more popular, so they had to go back and redo those, and the Beatles weren't in the studio when those were being done, so now they're saying the mono versions are the original classic versions that the Beatles wanted everyone to hear it. Let It Be, the final album by the Beatles. They were already broken up by the time this was released, and this is just kind of a compilation of recordings that they had sitting on the shelf. The original intent was to make a live album of new material, and they recorded for hours, and the more they recorded, the more they got into each other's shit, and they eventually broke up for a while during the making of these tapes. But Abbey Road was their comeback album, but was their last as a group. But this came out after Abbey Road, even though it was recorded before. The Yellow Submarine album, soundtrack from the film. The compilation albums, the Beatles 1962 to 1966. It's got a cool gatefold of a bunch of anybody who wants to get into a picture, come in there and now and join us, you know, kind of thing. They're looking through the gates, probably of the Apple building or something. Beatles 1967 through 1970. Compilation album, which has the same gatefold inside, only has a blue tint to it. The Beatles Hey Jude album, or The Beatles Again. It had two titles. Sometimes you'd see it as The Beatles Again and The Beatles Hey Jude, depending on what format you're looking at, I guess. Hey Jude was originally a single, of course, their first Apple single, and they put that on an album with a bunch of lot earlier tracks, like Should Have Known Better in stereo, and it was, like I said, it was a crazy combination of things going on back then with their packaging. Hope you enjoyed my little presentation. Hope it was informative for you. I know people out there know more than I do. So please don't leave any, you know, smart-ass remarks on my YouTube page. If you got any interesting and constructive criticism, yeah, but you know, if you to get out there and say, hey, get your shit together or something like that, you know. I've had that happen before, and with other videos that eventually got yanked. In fact, the whole account got yanked. So, if you enjoyed this, well, good. And if you didn't, well, too bad. I'll see you later. This is Ed Stevens with Retro Heaven on the Beatles special. See ya.